I don't know what the that was. Welcome back to another book review, everybody. So as I mentioned in my January wrap-up, I did get back to Dresden Files. Finally, it had been, shit, how long has it been since I reviewed a Dresden Files book? I'm starting to feel terrible about myself for not reading more of these books. Let's see, shall we? Summer and It was 4 months ago. That's insane. So Death Masks, book 5 of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. I'm going to do very brief spoiler free, if that's even worth doing, and then jump straight into spoilers. Obviously, if you are familiar with the series by now, you know sort of what to expect, at least to this point. These are very noir, sort of detective feel, but in a fantasy setting. So you follow Harry, who's a wizard. He lives in Chicago. It is basically a modern day Chicago, but obviously there is magical stuff happening all around, unbeknownst to most people that live there. So Harry is a wizard. He deals with the White Council. There are vampires and werewolves and demons and angels and all kinds of fantasy shit happening. Usually these follow, a pretty similar structure to the previous books. Somebody comes to Harry with a problem. That same thing happens here, where he is approached to solve some sort of magical crime or death that has happened. They can't go to the cops, so they come to Harry. He is actually literally in the phone book as a wizard, so that is typically the general jumping off point to most of these stories, at least to this point so far. But Jim Butcher, with each of these books, is building on the actual atmosphere in the world. He's building things behind the scenes. He's expanding on the Never Never. And from where we started in very humble beginnings with Stormfront, where it was Harry trying to solve a murder mystery involving a warlock, it is well beyond that by now. You had many ghosts and expansions of the Never Never in Grave Peril. You had the entire Fae storyline of Summer Night. And now you have essentially angels versus demons, this time with the Fallen. So this starts off, once again, in the traditional premise of Harry is approached by somebody. This time it happens to be Father Vincent, who's actually from Italy. He is a priest who comes to him with a problem to solve. The Shroud of Turin has been stolen, and he wants Harry to find it. And Harry, of course, assumes, okay, there's magical elements going on. This is not just a religious artifact. There's clearly some magic stuff happening. And we go from there. So spoiler-free, you're getting the same lovable Harry Dresden, lots of comedy, lots of action, pretty nonstop pace-wise. I mean, this just continues from one scene to the next, following just it's like a Monster of the Week kind of deal still, where it's sort of like an episode or two of a show, and then it goes on to the next book, which is really fun because it's sort of like a relief to read something this quick and easy to get through after reading, big epic fantasy books. Like I read Gardens of the Moon earlier in January, and then I read this, to the tail end of January after I read Ruin, and it's a perfect series to fit in between big fantasy books. And it's just, I love the writing. It's witty, it's engaging. I love the characters. The characters really make or break these books. I mean, the stories are pretty straightforward for the most part, but the characters are 10 out of 10. So let's just jump directly into spoilers. I'm not going to follow any particular path, but I kind of just want to talk about what happens and what this book sort of adds to the overall story of the Dresden Files that we are building towards. So if you have not read Death Masks, turn away now. It's great. I highly recommend this series, and everybody should read it. So spoiler time. So when this started out, immediately when Harry's attacked right up front, I mean, you're getting him sort of followed by people, and you kind of know, okay, they're either going to attack him or like be there to defend him, and that demon comes after him, that demon bear. You're kind of just like, what the hell is this? And then you see Michael show up with Sonya and Shiro to sort of kill this demon, and you learn about the Fallen, and that's all pretty cool. The entire mystery around the Shroud of Turin, you're really wondering the entire book, like, why is this thing so important? Why do people want it? And the reveal at the end that it was Marcone that wanted it to begin with, because, oh, he's got a heart. He's trying to save his sweet little family member. That was pretty touching, and actually makes you feel for him as a character and understand that, like, yeah, this guy's a total bastard, but you understand why he does a lot of what he does. So that actually has me wondering if in the future he's not necessarily going to become a good guy, obviously not, but more of a mainstay in the story, and maybe even get some, not a POV, but more interaction with him as sort of working with Harry, because he works with Harry a lot in this book. And even, towards the end, when you think that he's gonna leave him out to dry. He, pulls him out of the river and helps him. So I definitely love how he's sort of evolved from just the mob boss to being more directly into the story and not just like a villain. I really love that Susan came back. I had been waiting for that for since Grave Peril. I think it was the last time she was here when she got turned into a vampire. I was waiting for some badass Susan vampire powers, which we got. She kicked a lot of ass. And when like her markings were showing up, and you learned that like her and Martin had these, whatever power, like magic over them to kind of hone in their vampirism so they don't completely lose it. That was really cool. Just watching her beat the shit out of people was great. And then when she finally loses it, and I was in Discord, and I was laughing so much at the scene when Harry's talking to Molly, the 14-year-old daughter of Michael, and they're talking about like handcuffs, and he's like, you know entirely too much about this subject. Like, I don't want to hear it. And then she's just like, well, why don't you just cuff her? And he's like, why do you know about that? And then somebody in Discord was laughing at me, basically saying like, oh, foreshadowing. And I was just like, oh God. It's like, he's going to cuff Susan at some point, isn't he? And yep, that scene happened. So that came full circle. But that entire scene with Molly was great. I love the writing about that. Just this, in Harry's eyes, this innocent, teenage girl just talking about things that, according to Harry, she should not know about whatsoever, and just the family that she's part of with Michael. I mean, being as religious as he is and by the book is just, that was great. I loved having Michael back. Michael is my guy. Him and Harry together is absolutely hysterical, just because I love, well, one, Michael's like total badass, and I love their character dynamic, because Harry is constantly talking shit and swearing, and Michael is always getting mad at him, and then Harry like over the top sarcastically corrects himself, which is always hilarious. The introduction of Shiro was cool. May he rest in peace. That was a hell of a way to go out too. Sonya is pretty cool, so I wonder if we're just going to keep meeting more and more Knights of the Cross. Jesus, I wanted to say like Knights of the Faith or something. The Knights of the Cross. So they all seem pretty interesting as well. And that whole intro, when they kill the bear to begin with, was awesome. And then, I mean, the introduction of probably the best villain that I've seen in the series so far. One, because he didn't just die in this book. I didn't care too much about the fairy queens, and I mean, the vampires are kind of always there, so they're always an opposing force, but Nicodemus, am I saying that correctly? Nicodemus, I don't know how to pronounce it. Terrifying, imposing force. I mean, what he did to Shiro was haunting, and just the fact that he's basically unkillable with it, with that noose around his neck and whatever power he has to sort of like stay invincible. That's terrifying, and he's obviously going to come back, and I don't know if he's going to be like a mainstay throughout the story, but he was obviously there at the end. They didn't kill him, and he, even kind of taunted Harry, like drove past him and said like bye to him. So he's obviously going to be around to stay. But I love the plot of this one the most, because Grave Peril was my favorite, mostly just because of the introduction of Michael, not necessarily because of the magic and stuff that was happening in that, but I loved having like Thomas more involved, which again, he comes back in this book. And he was just a total drunk moron, and he was hilarious. I love sort of the dual plot that was going on, the entire duel with Ortega coming up, knowing full well he was going to cheat one way or another. Like, he was never going to be fair to Harry. He wanted to kill him. That entire sequence was great, and learning that Martin was actually there with a sniper rifle to kind of protect them. That was dope. And knowing, again, that Ortega is alive, so he's going to go back to the Red Court, absolutely pissed off, and bring them back, probably in full force. So I fully expect Blood Rights probably to have a lot of vampires again. They are definitely a mainstay in this world and story, and learning about the different courts of vampires. Obviously, they're kind of internally battling, and they're also battling with the White Council, so that's obviously going to play kind of like an overarching story. I'd be interested to see if and when like the Fae and all of them come back into the story, because I mean, his godmother is still out there, the Fae are still pissed off at him, he's wronged a lot of people, so I assume that later on they'll come back because of how Summer Night ended. But everything with Ortega was great. I loved the entire search for the shroud, and like having the train fight, having Harry, Shiro, Sonya, Well, not Shiro, because Shiro died. Uh, Marcone and Michael all fighting Nicodemus and just basically getting their asses kicked because this guy's just terrifying. The action in this book was great. The reveals were cool. Learning more about the Knights of the Cross, learning about the Fallen, learning about this new imposing force and Nicodemus's like weird relationship with his daughter. Was that his daughter with the Medusa head? Like that? It's gross. They're terrifying. Definitely like the biggest bads that he's fought so far. My main critique of this book is it lacked a lot of Bob. I want some more Bob. But we got plenty of Thomas in the brief scenes that he was in. This was heavily focused on Susan and Harry, which, sad to hear, but obviously she has to go away again because she's got to get her vampirism under control. I'm glad that Murphy was not a massive thorn in Harry's side in this, even though at one point she almost became one. And he was just like, oh, are we going to do this again? And so I have a feeling she's going to get less and less like bad cop Murphy, I need to arrest Harry for breaking the law kind of crap. Because that really dragged down the first couple of books when it was just like, Murphy, stop. Like, he's trying to save you. So that was all great. I loved the slow build-up to Marcone being the buyer for the Shroud because, like, Harry thinks Marcone's, like, putting out hits on him, but they were actually trying to put hits on the freaking Denarians that were, like, undercover around Harry. So, like, that whole reveal was great. I absolutely love the scene when Harry, just with the baseball bat, he's like, they might be good people. He's like, I'm not a good person. And just, like, pow, 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 just, like, breaking kneecaps, breaking ankles. That whole scene was just delicious. I loved it. That was a weird thing to say, but I really liked that scene. That was great. And then the entire reveal with the priests that they were actually the Denarians in disguise, and Harry figuring that out, that was awesome. Everything was great about this book. This is definitely my favorite Dresden so far, and I really want to read more. I'm going to stick mostly to my TBR, but I'm going to add, I don't currently have Blood Rights as part of my February TBR. I'm going to try to find time for it. It's a short month. I'm moving. I've got Lord of Chaos and Wrath to get to, so, I mean, it's, I don't know, but it may or may not happen. We'll see. But the series is great. I really like where it's going, and I don't even really know overall where it is going. I mean, it's still relatively a Monster of the Week style, like slowly dripping in more and more lore and behind the scenes stuff. So I'm interested to see what Butcher's doing with this because I genuinely have no idea where this is going, why everybody's so hyped about, the most recent books that they won't shut up about that I need to get to. So I don't know. The series is pretty great. I have full confidence that the rest of these books are going to be, 5 out of 5 reads for me. I've heard that like White Knight maybe is kind of a step down for some people, but I have yet to see a bad Dresden book. I mean, again, if Full Moon is the worst that this series gets, sign me the fuck up. I mean, what else is there to say? Dresden Files kicks ass. Harry's hilarious. I love this cast of characters. The writing is engaging and fast-paced and well done. The dialogue is absolutely hilarious most of the time and just so well done. And there's like a perfect level of mystery to these stories. It's comfortable to read. You kind of feel at home reading these books just because they're so easy to get into, easy to read through. The audiobook I'm going to try for Blood Rights because I hear James Marsters is phenomenal, so I'm going to give that a shot for the next book because I've been reading these. I typically don't do audiobooks for shorter books, but I'm going to try it out at least partially because I want to see what everybody's talking about. But more Dresden Files to come for sure. I'm struggling internally on if I want to just catch up on the series this year with Wheel of Time. We'll see. Probably. I'm at least going to read one a month, so I'm going to try to fit one into February, but stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's going to do it for Death Mask, guys. This is my new favorite, so let's see what Blood Rights has to offer. But like and subscribe. As always, do hit up Patreon if you want to support the channel financially. That's, of course, always optional, but always greatly, greatly appreciated. I would love to see you all in Discord talking about Dresden and other things, or drop in a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite Dresden Files book is, what you thought of Death Masks, who your favorite character is outside of Harry. Mine would have to be Michael. Other than Harry, Michael is just fantastic. I love him. And Thomas kind of for the same reason, but he's just not in it that much, so I want more Michael. Michael and Harry buddy cop adventures, please. So that's going to do it for this one, though, guys. So until next time, keep reading.